For so many families living with ALS, the search for treatment feels like a constant race against the clock. And that search often leads to a really tough, really important question when you're looking at the very latest research. Right? What happens when you see a promising new experimental therapy, but for whatever reason, you find out you're not eligible to join the study? It's an incredibly frustrating spot to be in, and it's more common than you'd think. So today, we're going to break down the official pathway that was created for this exact scenario. All right, here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off by understanding why not everyone can get into a trial. We're calling that the clinical trial gap. Then we'll get into what expanded access actually is. After that, we'll meet the 4 key players who have to be involved. And this is important. We'll talk about weighing hope against some tough realities. And we'll finish up with some clear first steps on how you can explore these options for yourself. So let's start with the clinical trial gap. Look, clinical trials are the gold standard. They are absolutely essential for proving if a drug is safe and if it actually works. But their design has to be incredibly strict, and that means, by definition, they just can't include everyone. And here are some of the most common reasons why. It could be medical. Maybe the disease has unfortunately progressed beyond a certain point for the study's criteria, or maybe another health condition gets in the way. Sometimes it's purely logistical. You might live hundreds of miles from the nearest trial location, and other times it's just bad timing. The enrollment slots are all filled up, or maybe the study is looking for a specific genetic subtype of ALS that just isn't a match. So this gap is exactly why we have a formal pathway called expanded access. It was literally designed to be a regulated, official route to potentially get access to these investigational treatments when a trial just isn't in the cards. So let's put a pin in that and get a clear definition. Officially, expanded access is a regulatory pathway. It allows patients with really serious illnesses, like ALS, to get a drug that is still in development, one that hasn't gotten that final FDA approval yet. Now, you've probably heard another term, compassionate use. This is where things can get a little confusing, but it's pretty simple. Think of expanded access as the big official name for the entire system. It's the whole framework. Compassionate use is the more common, everyday term we use, and it usually refers to a specific request for a single patient within that bigger system. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. Expanded access is not a shortcut. It is not a way to jump the line or get around the scientific process. Clinical trials are, and they have to be, the main way we learn if a treatment truly works for the wider community. This pathway is only for when a trial isn't possible for a specific person. Okay, so how does a request like this actually work? It's definitely not as simple as just making a phone call. It's really a coordinated effort between 4 different groups, and every single one of them has to give the green light.
First up, of course, is the patient. The requirements here are really clear-cut. You have to have a serious or life-threatening condition, like ALS. You can't have any other good treatment options, and, as we've said, you have to be unable to join a clinical trial.
Next, and this is so important, is the physician. Your doctor is the one who acts as the sponsor. They're the one who kicks off the whole thing. They evaluate the patient's case, they weigh the potential risks and benefits, and then they handle all the complex paperwork and phone calls. You absolutely cannot do this alone. The third key player is the drug company itself. Now, even if the patient and the doctor are all in, the company that actually makes the drug has to agree to provide it. And honestly, this can be a huge hurdle. They might say no for all sorts of reasons. Maybe they have a very limited supply, or they're worried it could interfere with their main clinical trials. Their yes is a must.
And finally, you have the oversight bodies, the FDA, and what's called an Institutional Review Board, or an IRB. The FDA's job is to review the request to make sure it's as safe as possible for the patient. And the IRB, which is basically an ethics committee, makes sure the patient's rights are protected and that everyone fully understands the risks involved.
So this chart lays it all out pretty clearly. It starts with the doctor reaching out to the drug company. If, and that's a big if, the company agrees, then the formal application goes to the FDA and the IRB. And only if all of those dominoes fall, only if everyone approves, can the treatment start, with the doctor keeping a very close eye on the patient the whole time. Okay, this brings us to a really, really important part of this whole conversation. We have to talk about balancing the incredible hope this pathway offers with the tough, honest realities of experimental medicine. Because let's be real, While this pathway is a source of immense hope, that hope has to be paired with a clear-eyed understanding of the process, the limitations, and the possible outcomes. It needs a serious dose of realism. And these are the biggest hurdles to think about. First, availability. As we said, the drug company can just say no. Second, uncertainty. You are dealing with a massive unknown. These are experimental drugs. We don't know for sure how effective they are or what all the risks might be. Then there's cost, which can be a huge issue. Insurance often won't cover the drug, the doctor's visits, or any of the monitoring. And most importantly, getting access to a drug is absolutely not a guarantee that it will help. This is maybe the single most important and sobering thing to remember. The hard truth is that the vast majority of drugs that look promising in early tests just don't end up working when they're studied in larger clinical trials. It's a tough fact, but it is so vital for keeping expectations in check.
So after all of that, the potential, the process, and the pitfalls, what do? What are the practical first steps you can take if you want to explore this? How do you even start the conversation?
Here's a simple game plan. Step 1, and this is always step 1, talk to your neurologist. They are your primary guide through all of this. Step 2, exhaustively, and I mean exhaustively, look into every single clinical trial you could possibly qualify for. Remember, that is always the best path. And step 3, reach out to patient advocacy groups. The resources, the support, and the information they provide are just incredible. And all of this leaves us with one final, much bigger question to think about. This whole system is a delicate balancing act. How do we, as a community of patients, doctors, families, and researchers, how do we champion compassionate access for the people who need it right now, while at the same time protecting the scientific process? Because that process is our only real hope for finding proven, effective treatments that will help everyone in the future. It's the central challenge, and it's one we all have a stake in figuring out.